Welcome to the Building Better Brains in the Spotlight series with Sian Chambers Valance. In the spotlight today, we are going to be talking about the hand model of the brain that was actually created by Dan Siegel. And this is a fantastic way of explaining how the brain works for ourselves and also to our children. So I'm going to run you through it and you can practice at home, and then you can share this with your own children or with other people that you work with as well to help them understand their own brains and behavior a little bit more. So what we're going to do is we're going to put up our fist like this, and we're going to imagine that this part of our arm here is actually the brain stem. Now the brain stem is the back of our brain. It's the first part of our brain to develop. It develops in utero up to around 12 months old, and it's a very primitive part of our brain. It's really focused on survival. It's our reptilian brain. So that's our brain stem right here. Then the next part of our brain is this little bit in here. It's actually a big bit, and it's made up of a number of systems, and it's called the limbic system. This part of our brain develops between 12 months old up to 4 years old, and it houses our stress response system, our pleasure reward system, where we get big hits of dopamine, which is our pleasure chemical, and our attachment system. So how we actually build our attachment relationships with other people in our life. And this is really set by how we attach to our caregivers up to age 4. And then a part of this part of our brain as well is our memory system and our hormone system as well. This little part here, the thumb, is our guard dog. This is called our amygdala. The job of this part of the brain is to really see if we're safe, to keep us safe. So it's always assessing the environment and people to see if they are safe or not, and whether it needs to activate our fight, flight, or freeze systems that can maybe get us out of the danger. So that's our little guard dog here. The top part of our brain, which doesn't finish developing until we're actually 30 years old, the newest research tells us, this little part here called the prefrontal cortex, which I call the wise owl part of the brain. And this is the cerebral cortex. This is our left and right parts of our brain, wraps around the top, and it's got some connections in between. And this is more of our learning brain. It has the ability to regulate, cause and effect thinking, impulse control skills, creativity, empathy, all of these more higher order learning skills in the brain. Now, the reason that we need to understand this structure is that when the brain is stressed, or when there's been traumatic experiences which are outside a person's ability to control, and it's overwhelmed the brain, or they haven't been able to escape the danger, this can also be toxic stress, which is considered long periods of sustained stress, which cannot be managed effectively by the nervous system and by the brain. What happens is that we get this big hit of cortisol, right, to the upper parts of the brain, to the thinking brain. And this part of the brain literally goes offline. So it flips its lid. So I can show that again. We go flip with the cortisol, shuts down the connections to the thinking part of the brain. And so what we're left with in charge are these lower, more primitive parts of the brain, the reptilian brain, our guard dog, and our limbic system, which is our mammalian brain, which we share with other mammals. So it's all about our big emotions, our attachment systems, and if we're feeling safe or not. So if we come in, when we're dealing with someone, whether it's an adult or a child, and try to reason with them and treat them with logic when they're obviously in a big feeling overwhelmed state, we're not really going to get anywhere, because we can't even access that part of their brain. What we need to prioritize is providing messages of safety, calm, and connection to these lower parts of the brain system, which will allow the thinking brain to switch back on. So it's almost like giving a big hug to the lower parts of the brain, the survival parts, so that the thinking brain can switch back on again. And that's when we can have the conversations about restorative relationships, repair, consequences, trying to find out a little bit more about why the person chose to behave in the way they did. There's literally no point trying to do that until we provide this safety connection to the lower parts of the brain. So that is our hand model of the brain. I hope that's been useful for you today in being able to explain to the children that you work with or your own children at home, or for yourself to understand your own brain and behavior a little bit more. So thanks for listening, and I hope you can join us for our next series in the Spotlight with Sian Chambers Valence.